All right, so we have spoken about market structure and market that's practically market structure basics. And now I want to actually go into market structure and then change of character. I spoke about trends. Okay, so let's just go straight to the point. So internal market structure is basically a higher time frame narrative. When we go back to the daily time frame, we can see price is just basically a one impulsive move to the upside, and it changed trend from this particular place, right? So the next possible thing you are looking for is maybe price to actually um, come give a pullback and go to the upside. But what we can see practically from here is that price hasn't actually obviously taken the high of this particular place, so hence it makes this place probably an invalid let me say breakout structure. So we just take this whole thing as an impulse and a correction. So the next thing you should be looking for should be a pullback to should be this is a pullback, and this should be an impulse to the downside or probably an expansion, right? So off of this one, we understand how price moves. So you can see on the daily time frame, price is just basically impulse correction, then just straightforward to the upside. Okay, there is no kind of patches, you will not see any kind of thing. I probably as I know how price structure works, I can probably pinpoint where there is a low, basically like just this one, like this is a low, and this is a high, a lower low, a higher high, a lower low, sorry, basically higher highs and higher low instead. This a higher low and a higher high, just like that. A high, a low, a high, a low, a high, then a low, a high, then just basically like that. Okay, so when we go to the lower time frame, that's basically what we see. So let's shift to the 4 hour time frame. So we talk about the um what do you call it, the structure when when it comes to market structure, right? So this is actually internal structure breaks, and we are going to talk about change of character. So as our earlier video speaks about, so basically change of character is basically or as we talk about internal structure, right? So internal structure, as I mentioned, the other one I spoke about price actually going to the upside, and all of a sudden just start creating lower lows, couple of lower lows, and you think, so the fact that it hasn't broken the low, this low here, it is not actually a change of trend. So price starts continuing this way, that actually shows you that price was just actually messing up with your brain, right? So hence you should be looking forward to not being deceived by this kind of structure that happens most of the time. So when you check price structure like this, so we do have price structures. We have high, a low, a higher high, then a lower low, just like that. So on the other point of it is that in an impulse like this, you are going to see a whole different thing, right? So in an impulse, you're going to see something like a high, a low, a high, a low, just a small higher highs and a higher low that is being created, right? So you are basically not going to see it on the higher time frame because it is actually not. I will not say it is a thing for you to see it on the higher time frame, because the higher time frame, as we all know, is basically full with just bigger candles, and you will not be able to see this, right? So in most cases, you are always advised to, when you want to actually understand something better, it's better to always go to the lower time frame to just see it clearly for yourself, right? So instead of being on the higher time frame and thinking the narrative is basically perfect. Okay, so this is what happens, right? Same thing applies to um, uh, the expansion. So like this one too, for instance, it is also going to be just in this form, um, just like this, right? So that is what you're basically going to see. Okay, um, this one, I'm basically looking for. So that is basically what happens most of the time, right? So you're always supposed to know that price is not going to actually always going to be a picture perfect thing, as I've always explained, right? So this is how it's going to be. Let me shift it in a sense that you'll be able to see it clearly. So let's put the circle here, and the trend will be inside of here, right? So now in this place shows where the chalk is actually going to be. That's the change of character, right? So the change of character is always going to be what you're going to look for to know that price has changed structure in the lower time frame. So hence the change of character is always what we all look for, right? So it is going to, as it has started creating lower lows and lower highs, price then breaks to the upside, then goes to the, then it changes character, then you're now looking for an opportunity to go to the upside. So this is basically how the change of character is going to look like, right? So then it just represented by your structure. This is actually it, like this, and just that way. So then you are expecting price to go to the upside, okay, just like that, right? So let me just put this also in the circle, just so you know. All right, so this is basically the whole thing that we have always been talking about. So let me just give a label. So right now we have our impulse here, right? So we have our impulse, other people call it expansion, and a whole lot of names. So it has a lot of names actually, and let me rename this. Let me do this. Let me put it there. There is nothing inside, and the thickness of it. Okay, so let's make the tax wrap. No, okay, just something like this. I think something like this is okay for me. I wish I could get a minimum one so that it will not be that kind of price label. Okay, let's see how this one looks. All right, this is kind of too short for me. Okay, so no issues with that. So I'm just basically going to make it, let's make it a wrap. Okay, then we have it this way. All right, so we have this as our expansion. Okay, impulse, all, an expansion. Then we have our correction or a retraction. Okay, so in any way you call it, it is still valid. All right, so it is basically correction, made the first letter capital, correction slash retraction, and just like that. Okay, so then we have this right here, now showing us that this is actually our retraction, or better still, you can call this the retraction. Okay, so this is basically how it now goes to the upside. So and in full view, how you see it is basically, let me just name this so that you know it is internal structure. Internal structure. So what basically happens right here, so in the internal structure, price actually moves in this way. So this is how price moves, right? So it gives smaller highs, smaller higher highs, smaller lower lows, smaller higher highs, smaller lower lows. Then it changes character, right? So it changes character, start going the other way around, right? Just like this. Then changes character again. So and also you'll be going through structure shifts and all those stuff. So price then goes this way. So this is basically how price actually looks like when we look at from, so let's just say from this place to this place here, leaving this one out, right? My network is trying to disrupt my recording. Okay, all right, we are back to normal. So it is basically this one that is always so I'm just going to take this one out for example, right, and focus on this one, the impulse correction impulse. So you can see this one also have impulse correction impulse, but on the hindsight you can see we have higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Price broke structure here, giving us a change of character. So the change of character basically means that price has shifted structure in the lower time frames. Okay, so in this sense, that same thing happened here, but in this one you see that price actually gave a high and a low. So price didn't shift structure, but rather price shifted in structure, but was not strong enough to be convinced. So you always wait for price break of structure from here. So I deliberately did this to show you that price sometimes can deceive you into thinking that that shifted structure. When price is pulling down to the downside, higher highs, lower lows, and lower highs, and you see something like price has started giving a higher high, it doesn't necessarily mean price has shifted in structure, because until this one is broken, price hasn't shifted. But if it is not broken and continue going to the downside, price will just actually going to gather more momentum too, and also create liquidity for itself. So like I mentioned in the previous videos, when there is no liquidity, price creates its own liquidity just to suck people's money, right? So that is basically what happens. Those controlling the market are basically normal people like us. So this is what they do to make a majority get us into the game and actually suck our blood, right? You understand what I mean? Okay. So this happens in a sense that they practically take our money, and it becomes theirs, right? It becomes theirs. So that is basically what happens, right? So they are not going to take it illegally, and you say, yeah, they have stolen your money. They take it legally. Okay, in a sense, you think your money is still available, right? So, and for us to follow the money, and as we know, we are always going to follow the money. So as price structures, we are following liquidity, we are following similar structures, and following the footprints of the market makers, actually called the composite man, as Wyckoff study says. We'll also be looking at Wyckoff study to help us elevate in some of these things, right? So now that we have all this stuff ready, we actually know price structure and how it actually moves. So this is how it moves in the lower range time frame, and this is how this particular place changes structure. This is how this one actually looks like on the lower time frame. This is how this one looks like on the lower time frame too as well. So that same thing I showed you from the daily time frame, and then we are now back on the downtrend actually. Okay. So now let's look into normal structure. So now what you can see from here, price has also created that same thing. But when you go to the daily time frame, it shows you a different narrative. Okay, you can see on the daily time frame, you see it's one impulsive move. Okay, but then when we go to the 4-hour time frame, price shows you a different thing altogether. So price shows you just what I spoke about, a high, a low. So you can see this one, it didn't break the high, the low. Okay, so and it has already started creating higher, lower lows and lower highs in internal structure. So it started creating it on its own, just the same thing as this one, and it has not also broken structure. So hence this one too was also protected, right? So this is what happens for them to lure you into thinking you are shifting structure. So you can see how this one swept liquidity nicely, and you can see this one, you would think you are actually in the right direction. You take a trade, and then finally boom, you are stopped out going back to the upside. So that is actually what happens, right? So now you can see now we have a low and a high, right? So let's just pick this as one of the lows of this one, combine it just to save time, and we have a higher high and a lower low. So price has basically started creating structures going to the upside on the lower time frames of the daily time frame, right? So that is what happens. So for you not to get confused, okay, for you not to get confused, this basically you can label this as the daily time frame, or let's say the higher time frame, right? So this is the higher time frame narrative, and this is the lower time frame narrative. All these ones are the lower time frame narrative. So let me just write here, lower time frame narrative. So the full meaning of each TF is higher time frame, just as you can hear them from my mouth, higher time frame. So this is basically lower time frame changing trend. Okay, all this is just basically lower time frame changing trend, right? So it's now looking like some kind of Ponzi scheme. You can see how it is. The higher time frame is not seen clearly. The lower time. So just like our politicians, let me take Ghana, my country, for instance. Right, I'm not exposing this to the world for those of you who are not Africans, or for those of you who are not Ghanaians, right? And it is a big thing for the Ghanaians. We see it as normal because it's possibly not a good thing, right? Excuse me, this is a disclaimer. This is for educational purpose, just explaining how things works. If you find this irritating, please don't report me. I am not I'm not actually what they call a journalist, so I don't have any license to defend myself, right? But when you look at the economic crisis of our country right now, what is happening? The political leaders are actually sucking the money into their possession, because they know now that there is an inflation. They are going to take that opportunity to suck the money, and at the end of the day, they say it is actually being spent on the country. So that is what basically just says inside here. So you are seeing one impulsive move. But when you enter with your small money right here, it will come back, stop, drain your whole money and go to the upside. But when you know this movement and you know this movement, you are entering with what is a small amount of cash. So that I know that you can even enter with big cash, because you know on this lower time frame, this is what is happening. So when you enter here, you know where to hold it up to and you come out, right? So I was just using the government as an scapegoat to actually explain some of the things. But yeah, so nothing else. Sorry my president, sorry my country. All right, now let's go into basically there's corrupt politicians everywhere, so we shouldn't be afraid of that though. Okay, now we know this is how this actually works. So as this has started, and for you to see Choch on the lower time frame, right? So let me show you how Choch looks like. So now we have our high right here. So we have our high and our low, right? Nicely created. Okay, or you can take this as our low because that was the low that created the wick that came, didn't break it. So let's say this was our low and this was liquidity. Let's just put it that way. So in this situation, we are looking for the next impulsive move to the upside, but we haven't seen any confirmation yet, so we don't know if this will actually break this before anything else or not. So now we know this is our potential low and this is our potential high, right? And this is the next high because the next it has started pulling back, right? So now we know this. Now let's play just play price forward, right? Let me just take this candle and label it as range high. All right, so let's do this range high. Okay, and we have the other one as the range low, right? So I am labeling this to just make sure you understand, so that we can go through with it smoothly without thinking. So range low, right? So now, so this is basically our new range high and this is basically our new range low. So let's play price forward. Okay, so and in this case price has basically broken the range low, right? So now giving us the Choch that I was talking about, this particular one, right? This particular one. So now we have price creating this particular one right here. I am representing it with a red candle, right? So price has created this particular one, okay, on the lower time frames. So for you to see clearly, this is what it has created, right? So if you want to see it on the what do you call it, lower time, let me say line chart, this is how it will look like, right? So this is how it will look like on the lower time frame. Just you can see how similar it looks on the lower time frame. So that's basically how it creates. So most of the times if you want to see price clearly, you can just shift to the low. So you can see a high, a low, a higher high, then a lower low, right? So that is basically the internal structure of a break of structure, right? So that is how it works. Okay, and basically all what this actually shows you is it gives you the ideology that price has actually changed its direction on the what, on the lower time frame. So hence the higher time frame is going to what, change its trend. So if you know this, and you know price is changing its trend, you are now ready for anything and you are ready to strike, right? Let's put this also so that I can use that to be teaching. All right, so now we know this is our new low. We are now looking for our high, right? So and our high is not yet confirmed, so hence our low is not yet confirmed, right? So we are now waiting to see where it starts going down. But you can just start approaching it and saying this is your low because the candle has closed. If it is in the live market, it is not closed yet, right? You wait for the candlestick to close. So when it starts pulling back, that means it becomes our low, right? So now this has started pulling back, so this becomes our new low, right? And you can see inside bars. So I've not actually spoke about inside bars, so it doesn't matter how big the candle is, but this is actually an inside bar, something like this. So you can use, for you to be able to identify inside bars, for those of you to use in trading view, you can actually check you can come to this place, indicators, and you search inside bar, right? Inside bar. Okay, you can just search inside bar and you can just select any of them, but mostly I will choose this one because I think I have used it before, right? So it basically changes the color of the candle, so you can see how it has highlighted them. So these are all inside bars. So you can just for you to, you can change the settings. So me, I can change it to white, right? You can change it to white, and you can see how this is. I think the previous color was okay, so let's just send it back. So you can be able to identify inside bar with this, but with just using your normal eyes, I can be able to identify inside bar. So inside bar, this is an inside bar, right? So an inside bar is basically price that it has not. So you see, it has price has not been able to actually break out of it, indecision. So that's what they call the indecision candle, right? So the when indecision candle is found somewhere, that is where price is likely going back to hit and then go back to the downside, right? So now, this being our high, we're now depicting our new low, right? So because we have our high already, and some people now start looking for trades, because this is a break of structure. Some people start looking for trades around this area, and they'll just take their entry, then price start tanking to the downside with what do you call it, internal structure, right? So that is basically how internal structure works. And so with the internal structure, there is always some other let me see there are always some schematics you need to take to follow it. Most of the times price can basically break just like this and still go back and break to the upside. So it basically means that there was liquidity, it created liquidity right here. So most people don't actually take this, that the change of character. Most people don't actually follow that one. What they do see, they just do know this is the change of character, but they now wait for the next break of structure here. Then they take their entry off of the next entry. So it can be anywhere from here, So they are always sensitive to most of them. So you see, most of them are very sensitive to directions. So they take their trees, sniper entries, and you will not be able to know how they did it. So most of the time, the IT is always done on the lower time frame. I remember I posted a video on my YouTube channel explaining this particular one, how I made 49%. Right, that was one of the entry schematics that I took. If you see how I took it, price went up, created a small low, then worked it, then went to the upside. So now I started to put that there was an opportunity to take this as a buy. So hence price came down, and just like that, boom, it started going to the upside. So yeah, all right. Now we know how price the ranging works. So let's play price forward. You can see how price has reached this particular inside bar right here, and just like that, it's tanked to the downside, breaking structure. Okay, so basically what I can say is that the inside bar also it actually helps you into taking trades. That is actually an order block, because the last up move before the down move was because it was actually this candle. But when you're going to find the candle that actually initiated a momentum and was able to cover the whole thing, was this particular inside bar. So you can see the inside bar perfectly aligns well with this particular one, and when you are taking a trade off of this one, it basically looks like this, right? So it basically looks just this way. So this one you have 11 pips of entry, and you can target the lows, because that is basically where that is basically the last low before price started pulling back, right? And in this way you have around 17%. Okay, so now let's start playing price forward. So price just starts shooting, doing this thing, shooting, and also you need to know that those smaller movements. So this was a low broke structure, and this was basically your high. I guess this would have been your high, right? This would have been your high. Okay, then this new high was created, this new low. So you can see price also started creating higher highs and higher lows inside this internal structure. You might think price has changed direction, but that is not the case. So you can see how a high and a low just created, and then price broke structure, now given another change of character. So you can basically wait for another entry around here, practically off of this particular order block, and it will start shooting to that. So that's basically how internal structure range works with so you can see, as I mentioned, the order block, it tapped into it nicely, and we are expecting the nice move to the downside, right? Okay, so that is basically internal structure. All these movements are basically internal structure. Okay, just internal structure, showing you how it works. When you want to see them clearly, you see, just look at them, lines all over. The blue line, you can see how it went up, came down, went out again, just like that. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed off of the video. I'll make another video explaining other episodes. And so yeah, make sure if you don't understand these videos or my videos, make sure you go back and re-watch them once again, and I will explain them when you have our Zoom session, probably in our next Zoom session. Yeah. Okay, so see you guys in the other side.